Hey, I'm back. It's arplenoon, also known as Phoenix, for another entry of The Bridge Jumpers, a casual reading. This time it is Chapter 2. Summary. Error Sands has calmed down significantly since nearly 2 decades after the first X event. As such, he finds himself caring for a small skeleton girl named Cambria, who was abandoned in her world. In need of advice, he seeks out Sandy, a.k.a. Bad Dream. I also have my soda here with me because I had to get lunch. What had he been thinking? Why now had Air decided to open up, to care about something more than himself? Air noticed over the past years his destructive tendencies lessened along with an increased curiosity. The newer AUs that appeared became more interesting. They intrigued him to keep watching, to see how things would play out. Even in AUs he deemed unworthy, he could find something worth preserving. Cambria had been a turning point. An accident created by a gaster and left to die down in the True Labs. Finally, Air had found something that wasn't just another Sans or Papyrus. Something truly unique. Bringing the child back to his home, he nursed her back to health. Normally, with such things, he'd leave them in the anti-void to be found by Core's team. However, with the child so ill, he couldn't bear the thought of her turning to dust alone in the white space. Born without a lower jaw, she could only make small cooing sounds in response to whatever he said, so he set to teach the girl sign language. Soon enough, his small space in the anti-void began to fill up with picture books and soft plush toys, softer than what he could make with his magic. He'd set up 4 brick walls to block off something akin to a house, anything to hold off the insanity that was the endless white horizon. Once, someone had told him to touch grass. Era protested by making the whole floor of his living space dirt and grass. The girl hadn't been living with Era long before he had the thought to contact Paper Jam. Though he was no stranger to hypocrisy, it didn't settle with him to look after, even consider fostering a child while neglecting the 2 children who did share his code. But after all these years, was it even worth it? At the very least, he thought he should get a second opinion. Era had made a close friend nearly 2 decades ago, one of the few times he had outright killed or tortured someone. One of the few times he hadn't outright killed or tortured someone. Sorry, I was like, wait. A Sans who appeared like an old world fae bearing golden wings, but dressed like a peasant. He'd mockingly referred to the Sans as Sandy or Roach due to his dirty appearance. But the skeleton took quickly to the names. Sandy had such a charming air about him. Era couldn't help but just talk. On many occasions, Sandy made mention of being a father, and so Era found himself turning to him for advice. Many years ago, they'd agreed on a particular meeting spot in Undertale, a hollow asteroid that acted much in the way of a cave to store things they found throughout the multiverse. When he realized they were friends and wanted to be sure to catch up, they scheduled a time every month to meet and talk about what they'd seen throughout their travels. Ari usually arrived first, but this time Sandy was already there with a fire going, hot dogs and s'mores. Sandy, with dark circles under his sockets and yellow eyelights, looked up with a cheerful grin. "You late, bastard." The glitchy skeleton blinked, about to pull up a monitor to check the time, when Sandy laughed. "I'm teasing ya. Can't believe you fell for that." "You're usually the one who's late," Era groaned as he approached. But Sandy grinned, holding up a bottle. "I swiped a good one this time. Brandy. 20 years old. Almost old enough to drink itself. Shame." Era rolled his eyes as he sat down. "You're gonna give me a drink or sing the bottle happy birthday?" The fairy chuckled before half chewing, half twisting the top off the bottle, pouring them each shots in tin cups. "To chaos. To order," he chuckled, toasting as his friend before downing the drink. Normally, Air wouldn't drink all too much, unless it was a bad day, but something about being around Sandy made him feel calm and stable, like he could handle just about anything. I got something to show you. Aye, what is it? Said Sandy, going to open the marshmallows. You said you were a father, didn't you? Well, I have a little one of my own now. Sandy pulled too hard, ripping the bag and spilling marshmallows over the ground. He turned his eyes to Error, stunned. What was that? An amused chuckle escaped him before he opened the window back to his home, showing the hammock where the girl slept. Wings buzzing with excitement, Sandy leaned in close, an expression of disbelief. You really... You gonna raise them yourself? If a hobo like you can raise kids, why can't I? Error teased. But no, that's not my intention. I'm only looking out for her until I get her to the OT, but I need advice. You know Paper Jam Ingredient, right? I've been thinking of contacting them. What do you think? Or is it too late? I can't believe it, said Sandy, sitting back and rubbing his skull under his blue hood. Error, destroyer of worlds, a father? Hey, focus. Error snapped his fingers. Right. Yeah, of course. I think you should at least try. The worst that could happen is they say no, like you did for 16 years. Like you did for 17 years. With a groan, Error turned his gaze away, a shrug, I suppose. I'm blown away. This is wonderful, Error. I'm proud of you. Proud? He said, looking back. Sandy smiled and nodded. It's a sign. You're finally opening up to someone other than that You finally opened up to someone other than a bog body like me. Is that a death pun? That was a death pun, wasn't it? Error rolled his eyes. A giggle. Good one, ain't it? Well, Sandy looked back at the sleeping girl. They said it takes a village to raise a child. You need folks you trust, said Sandy, and rubbing his chin in thought. I know. I'll give you the access code to my world, and if something bad happens, you can bring them to me. The access code? Wait, you're giving me the code to your AU? Error's eyes fluttered. After all these years, it had been a secret Sandy kept guarded. Wait, so even if I have access to the AU, where will I know where to find you? I'll tell you only if it's necessary, Sandy smirked. In other words, you're giving me the keys to your house without telling me the address. Error's sockets tilted. So much for trust. I know if you need me. Give me your arm and I'll give you the code. His arm? Error realized after all these years Sandy was the only person he felt comfortable touching him. He tried to recall if he ever told Sandy about his... Now I copied this, so I don't remember how to pronounce it. Haphophobia? But even so, he'd grown to trust Sandy. He always had. With a deep breath, Error rolled up his sleeve, presenting his arm. Sandy gripped it, and Error felt the code transfer. Sandy pulled his hand away before looking all about at the marshmallows on the ground. Dear, well, no one ever said crackers and chocolate were bad on their own. Right, said Error, looking at his arm and giving a side eye to Sandy.